Hi everybody. I'm going to talk a bit about gamification, which I think is sort of one of our big topics for today. My name is Carmine Guida. This is my art ability. Actually, it's the exact outfit I'm wearing right now. I think I'm a teacher here at PACE. I teach the game programming class. If you're a CS major, I teach game programming, and I also teach sort of the CS 121 kind of stuff. So my first question I kind of want to, it's funny, in my slide actually I have a lot of questions actually instead of me telling you things, but it's kind of fun. What is a game? Does anyone, what makes something a game? Does anyone have any kind of ideas of what makes something a game?
It has some challenges.
Yeah, some kind of challenge, some kind of obstacles, you can have rules. But basically a game is usually something that has some kind of maybe some kind of challenges to it. And that can come in all different kinds of forms of challenges. If you asked me to draw something, that would obviously be a challenge for me. If you had a time constraint of me doing it within 10 seconds, I could be competing with someone to try to show something in a shorter amount of time. There's all types of different kind of rules and constraints we have, but in general, there is some sort of challenge. So, where do challenges and obstacles come from? And what's really interesting is until I'd say within the past 60 years or so, there was no such thing as a single player game, right? Basically, all of the games that we played were multiplayer games. And then once we had computers available to us, all of a sudden there's tons of single player games. So other than a few games like Solitaire or something, I think it's hard to find a game where you would just play by yourself. Usually you had competition between yourself and another person, or maybe you had some sort of team versus team. But what's great is we're all walking around with computers, and one thing that computers can do is they can provide a simulated opponent. So for instance, you could be playing a sports game or a chess game, and the computer can be a pretend human, and you're trying to beat a simulated opponent. Another thing that a computer can help provide is the playerverse themselves. So your phone, whatever you write, can sort of be a referee for that person. I might have a challenge. I'm trying to run a certain distance or be able to after a certain amount of time. I am trying to cut back on my carbs. Whatever else, I might make up something where I'm trying to study or use flashcards or something else. So the computer can provide a way to have the player challenge themselves. All right, so you can sort of be challenged by the computer, or you can sort of use the computer to provide for that person to work with their own challenges and their own obstacles and stuff that they're facing. Humans are another great place to get challenges from. The reason that a game like chess has lasted so long is because there's a constant supply of new players available all the time. You know, if you constantly played against your Uno versus your niece or nephew or something, you'd probably get bored and stop playing after a while. But what's great is there's tons of people out there. And I think when you are working on doing some sort of design for an app, you might want to think about, do we want to make something, if you have a time constraint of designing something, do we want something where we're sort of having the person, that they are the challenge, they're the obstacle they're trying to get over, or is it more of a social thing where they're trying to compete against someone else? It's very different if I have a personal goal of trying to be able to run, walk 10,000 steps in a week versus me trying to walk 10,000 steps a week before you do, right? Or more than my friend does. Right, so those are two very different silos, and they might be directions you want to think about when you're doing design of an app. So, what is gamification? And basically, gamification is when you take things that games have. Games have scoring, they have points, they might have leaderboards, they have rewards, instant gratification. You take all of these things that games have and you apply them to things that don't have those things. And I'll give you sort of, this is a real life example. I was in an AI algorithms class and basically for an assignment, we had to write a program that would be able to recognize pictures and objects and things. So you would upload it to the system, it would run your program, and if you got 80% or better, you're done. You can enjoy your weekend, you don't have to stay up at night or anything. But it showed a leaderboard of all of the students in the class and how well they were all doing. So you were compelled, even though you already have an A on this assignment, to try to keep going and get better than your other students, even though you're done with the assignment, right? Which I think is a very rare thing, that you're like, oh, I'm done, let me just keep working on this assignment anyway. So what was great is the professor sort of gamified the assignment, which you would never really think about this kind of thing, but they gamified the assignment by having a leaderboard of students. So you might be able to apply, again, this is a social kind of way of taking something that doesn't have game elements in it and adding game elements in it. Gamification is not making a game. Making a game is making a game. If you want to make a game, make a game. But if you want to take, you basically are taking elements from games and applying them to other things. So you might be curious, why are businesses and why are app developers researching gamification? And I have found a very interesting statistic. And basically, 25% of apps that will be opened just one time after installation. All right. So basically, 25%. There might have been tons of apps you downloaded onto your device, opened one time, and you never opened them again. All right. And that's obviously a problem. So people want to, get through this and make it so that you are opening that app more than once, or so that you're seeing ads, or that you want to get a subscription or something else. But basically, 1 out of 4 apps are never open more than one time. So what your goal is with gamification, like I mentioned, it's not to make a game. The goal with gamification is to build habits, okay? You want to figure out, how can I get this person to open this app once a week, once a day, 3 times a day? How do you get that app to be part of that person's day or part of a habit that they have? For instance, I use an app called Streaks, which tries to get you to build habits. But I have a habit of using the app Streaks, which is hilarious, right? And there are other, if you are adding some features to challenge other friends, to challenge how they're doing, maybe you want the person will open the app and see how their friends are doing versus how they're doing. Maybe you want to notify them that so-and-so has gotten ahead of them. You want to somehow get that person in the habit of using your app in some way. So again, the goal is not to build a game. The goal is to build habits using elements from games. All right, does that kind of make sense in a way? So your target is, how do I build a habit in this customer? So this is my last slide. These are some of the things that you might want to think about. It's quite just a thing of words. What are some kind of obstacles, challenges, or goals? For instance, I want to walk 10,000 steps a day. Might be my goal. Some of the things that we might use are instant feedback. I believe he mentioned having animations and other sorts of things that let you know the app understood or acknowledged what you did. This is what's great about developing apps and games and other things, is that you provide instant feedback. You're currently in the lead, you're currently not in the lead, you'll have 5 things until you have to get to it. We have points and rewards. Is someone speaking about rewards later on? Yes, no? In general, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a feedback loop with these things, where you commit an action, you see the results, you get some kind of feedback, and then you keep kind of staying in a loop of stuff. Badges are another common thing we'll see. Leaderboards. So a lot of this stuff you can actually do without it being social, but then having a social aspect, again, can add just some other way of getting that person into the habit of using this app. Maybe something like a leaderboard, some form of competition, and of course other humans are a great way to get people to be reusing your app in some way. Cool. Anyone have any kind of questions or any kind of anything? Yes, no, maybe so. All right, cool. All right, awesome. Like I said, I'm a professor here. You're welcome to email me or reach out to me if you have any questions about games or gamification, and I also have done some app development stuff also. Cool. Thanks.